All original magazine content was created by the staff of PSM Issue 1. Welcome back. Coming from the cold, the year is once again 1997, and after perhaps a day of school or some other time commitment, you are now free to continue reading through PSM Issue 1. If you missed the first video, where we checked out the opening sections talking about E3 1997, PlayStation 1's market dominance, and reviews such as for games like Final Fantasy VII, do check out that previous video. Picking up where we left off though, we are going to be looking at the top 25 PlayStation games of all time, which is a little bit weird considering we are still in the era of the PS1, and in the future there would come the PS2, 3, 4 and 5, and then probably more later, but hey, I guess things only ever got worse from here. We know everyone has their own best games ever list, but here at PSM we thought we'd try doing things a little differently. We could sit in some stuffy room and come up with what we think are the best games, but we know the only options that really count here are yours, the hardcore PlayStation gamers who actually go out and spend the money. So we went to the internet and let people vote on their favourites through our website, which was accessible from many of the websites on the Imagine Games network. We provided a list of contenders, including every game that could conceivably warrant a consideration. Our only stipulation was that our contenders had to have been released before June 1st, no voting for Japanese titles or games that weren't out yet. You let your voice be heard, and we must admit, some of your votes were a little surprising. So without further ado, let's take a look at your top 25 favourite PlayStation games of all time. I am delighted that we are getting treated to not just the opinions of some staff members at PSM, but actual, genuine public opinion here. However, there are a few caveats, such as the fact that they put anything that they could consider on the list, but like, you know, there might be some things that some staff members were like, that one doesn't deserve to go on to the list for arbitrary reasons. That might not have happened, but it might have happened, we have no idea. Also, this is probably a biased group of voters, because these are the kind of people who would, you know, go to a website in 1997 to vote on their favourite games from their favourite PlayStation magazine. So, obviously, while first-party titles wouldn't show up in other magazines that are about other consoles, you know, a more generalised magazine across all of the consoles and all of the gaming sphere would probably hold a less weighted result. But it doesn't really matter, I'm just saying this because it's worth saying. Also, once again, we will not be going through the entire magazine with a fine-tooth comb, that's not what we're here to do. I will instead be reacting at things that jump out at me that are specific to my interests. At 25, we have Jumping Flash, which they say, quote, is the first true 3D platform game, and it did a darn good job of being one, I guess. I'm going to look up the date for Super Mario 64 because I have to wonder if this is just them firing shots across the bow at Nintendo. Okay, fair play, Jumping Flash was apparently released in 1995, whereas Super Mario 64 was released in 1996. It received within the region of 7 out of 10 to 8 out of 10, so what's interesting about that is I feel like if you were to put a top 25 PlayStation games list out there today, I don't think anything with a 7 out of 10 or an 8 out of 10 would make it to the 25th spot. Less games back then, of course, but they did say of all time... Okay, I'm gonna stop beating that drum. At number 24 we have Warhawk, which is another game I've never heard of. Apologies if people have heard of it and they think I'm terrible for not having heard of it. Number 23 is a game called Command & Conquer. I've never heard of... I'm joking, don't worry, I've heard of Command & Conquer, I know what that is. Still, never played it, not really in my wheelhouse. I'm surprised to find Wipeout all the way at number 22, which I've been led to believe was a breakout sensation for the PlayStation. I believe it was a release title in North America, but then this is the biased account of someone who very much likes Wipeout. I like Wipeout. I thought I had played the original Wipeout, but I found out when I bought it on PSN for the PS3 that actually no, my first Wipeout game was a little game called Wipeout 2097, which I believe is called Wipeout XL across seas. At number 21 we have NBA Shootout 97. Yep, that's all I have to say about that one. At number 20 we have Twisted Metal. Now, funny fact about Twisted Metal, I have never played a Twisted Metal game. Actually, that's not true. I did go back and play the original one fairly recently. It has not aged well, I am sorry to say. However, my Twisted Metal in my childhood, still on the PS1, so in my opinion, still counts, was a game called Rogue Trip, which was made by the developers of Twisted Metal after they sold the IP. It was sort of a spiritual successor. But yeah, Twisted Metal, another game I'm surprised to find so far down the list. Another game which I would call a platform-defining game, so here's hoping that whatever comes next lives up to the expectations. At number 19 is Ridge Racer, and I'm actually quite surprised, looking back, at the fact that we never bought a Ridge Racer game. We never had one. This is another classic that I'm having to admit to having never played. The closest affiliation I have with Ridge Racer is when the trailer for Ridge Racer PSP first came out, and I was a dumb 12-year-old who wanted nothing more than to be able to upload YouTube videos, and I was so dumb that the only way that I could figure out how to upload YouTube videos was to upload game trailers that I had downloaded from PSN Network, from my PSP onto the computer, which would then upload directly to YouTube. So my first ever YouTube videos, I don't talk about this very often, on another channel, now all privated or delisted so I don't get absolutely destroyed for abusing copyright, is old PSP trailers, and some of them did quite well. I do intend to actually explore the Ridge Racer franchise at some point. At number 18 is Street Fighter Alpha 2. I'm afraid I am not a fighting game person. I've never even heard of Street Fighter Alpha 2, I don't know how different that is to the normal mainline Street Fighter series. Formula 1 takes number 17, and I find it interesting. Formula 1 seems to be a game series which was very much lauded on PlayStation 1 from what I can tell from this magazine alone. I guess maybe these were still the days before Gran Turismo. When did Gran Turismo come out? Yeah, Gran Turismo wouldn't come to the West until 1998, so a year after this magazine. So maybe before Gran Turismo, Formula 1 was like the racing sim star of the PlayStation 1. Maybe I'll turn the page and be hit with another racing sim style game, and I will look very silly. This next page looks like it cuts off an advert halfway, but I promise you, that is the entire advert. There is nothing that continues on to the next page. The whole advert is just, when he asks for a donut, comma. Yeah, I don't know either. It appears to be an advert for a game called G-Police by Psygnosis. Never heard of it. Speaking of games I've never heard of, number 16 sees the fighting game Tobal taking the position. That phrasing. Number 15 is NFL Game Day 97, another sports title. Number 14, we're really getting up there now, Die Hard Trilogy. I didn't know these games existed. This would obviously be a movie tie-in. I'm really not doing myself any favours here, but I've never even seen a Die Hard movie, so I'm not really a movie-watching guy. It might be interesting to go back and revisit these games as kind of a progenitor to the GTA series, so based on what the gameplay it sounds like. A+ sentence structure, me. Quote, favourite moment, when you first switch to the in-the-car view in the driving mode, then run over a sidewalk full of people, your windshield wipers automatically turn on to clear the blood away just as fast as you can pile up the bodies. Nice touch. Yeah, that sounds very GTA to me, although it sounds like it's got different POVs as you play through it, but I don't know. On the next page we have Jet Moto at position number 13. If you can imagine a trick, you can probably pull it off in Jet Moto. Are you sure? I bet if I go back the game is not that dynamic. At number 12 is a game called Vandal Hearts, the first RPG game we've even seen on this list, and it seems to be a hybrid of RPG and strategy. This game does precede Final Fantasy Tactics, but I do not know enough about the genre to say who truly kind of like was the progenitor of the genre. It might have not been Vandal Hearts, it might have been an earlier game. At number 11 we have Rallycross by Sony Interactive. This game is said to be better with analog sticks, go figure. Number 10, a game he's actually played, thank god he's not a fake gamer. Destruction Derby 2. At least I think I played this game. It could have been Destruction Derby 1, or it could have been a Destruction Derby adjacent game made by a competitor, but I'm pretty sure it was this one. What it's all about, the name says it all. Drive around and bash other cars with big points awarded for sending an opponent into a 360. Hey, wait a second, the 360 wasn't even announced at this point. Why, it's great! The first Destruction Derby was a great idea, but had its share of flaws. However, the second installment is near perfect thanks to an incredible driving engine, precision control, a challenging learning curve, and an ingenious damage system. The racing is so detailed, you can even lose a wheel and break an axle. Of course, it's quaint seeing like the most minimal amount of damage, wear and tear being celebrated. Would you like to hear a tangent that has practically nothing to do with the game? Yep, okay. My biggest memory of playing this game is me asking my parents if I could not have to go to the Beavers Club anymore. For those of you unaware, the Beavers was what you went to when you were too young to go to the Scouts. And I had my big light blue Beavers jumper, and I basically just didn't want to go anymore because I didn't like talking to the people who were in my Beavers class. I didn't like them. And so my dad and I had a long conversation about this, and then eventually he was like, if you're absolutely sure, I was like, yes, I'm absolutely sure. I would rather stay home and play video games. This sure didn't inform any future personality of mine. And so I remember him leaving the house to go without me to Beavers to go and tell the people there that I would no longer be attending, and just being consumed with guilt that I was abandoning this thing. That is my Destruction Derby 2 core memory. Number 9 is Twisted Metal 2. Hey, wait a minute. Isn't it kind of weird that we're allowing multiple entries per series onto this list? I feel like most of these kinds of lists don't do that, but that's fine, whatever. Okay, it's 1997, there aren't many video games yet, let's carry on. Oh, okay, here's proof that I don't read these ahead of time. This is the rest of the advert. I don't know why it's like 2 pages ahead. It's not like it's a middle of the page ad for page 1 and 2, it's more like... Yeah, okay, I don't understand. At number 8 we have Rage Racer. Okay. For a second I thought this was Ridge Racer 2 or something. Wait a second, this is Ridge Racer 3? Ridge Racer 3 is called Rage Racer? I really need to learn about this series, I know nothing. At number 7, we have Crash Bandicoot. Hell yeah, now we're getting into it. What it's all about. You're a bandicoot, a large rat, who gets his jollies by hopping on other animals' heads and walking around wearing pants. Not your normal bandicoot activities, but hey, that's Crash. Why, it's great. The first thing you'll notice are the colourful high-resolution graphics, which are nothing short of breathtaking. Play the game and you'll find out there's also some very solid gameplay in there too. All the great platform jumping action that made the genre a hit years ago is still addictive, and since the game keeps mixing up the level types, the action stays fresh. Favourite moment. The 1 second before Crash jumps on that hog and rides him. He turns back and looks at you and raises eyebrows, as if to say, I'm gonna make that hog squeal like a pig. That Crash is one naughty character. Why am I reading these out loud? It only embarrasses me. Now obviously when you read old gaming magazines it's fun to point to passages like, oh, high resolution graphics which are nothing short of breathtaking, and laugh at them, but I was a kid who played Crash Bandicoot, and I don't particularly remember going, wow, the graphics, it looks so realistic. But maybe that's just because the PS1 was my first console, I was new to video games, I had no prior knowledge of what video games used to look like. The PS2 was really my era of looking back and going, wow. At number 6 is a game which is still on my to-play list, Suikoden. I'm not joking. I really want to play through this game. Maybe expect to see a series of me playing through that at some point in the future. I am currently, playing through a fair bit already though. Here we go. At number 5 is the aforementioned Wipeout XL, known to me as Wipeout 2097, which is obviously the better title. Wipeout 2097 was one of the first video games I ever played, and I remember being, it's obviously depicting a super far into the future, one might say cyberpunk, like hover racing league, and I was still so young and fresh and new to the world. I remember in a way that I can't quite quantify or put words to being a little bit taken aback by this game. Everything was just all bright colours and jagged edges. I wasn't too young to know that this wasn't a thing that happened in the real world, don't get me wrong. But at the same time, I was too young to understand the fictitiousness of it in a weird way. It was just cool. It was just cool, and I sucked at it, obviously. Again, some of these like super nascent memories are really hard to quantify or put words to, but I tried my best. At number 4 is Soul Blade, which, quote, is Namco's latest fighting game and features 10 characters dressed in really funky Eastern clothing. This was, of course, the progenitor to the Soul Calibur fighting games, or the first entry in the series. I don't know, I'm not a series vet, I'm not going to pretend like I know things that I'm not certain of. I'm not a gaming journalist, I'm just some fucking guy. At number 3 is Tekken 2. I wonder, how many fighting games would get into a top 25 PlayStation games of all times list nowadays? Fighting is a genre which I think has definitely dipped since the PlayStation 1. At number 2, and it's no surprise, and I think I can guess what number 1 is, number 2 is Tomb Raider. What it's all about: you're Lara Croft, a female Indiana Jones type adventurer who has a special fondness for guns. You spend hours upon hours getting lost in giant caves, solving puzzles, shooting things, and hoping in vain that Lara will take her clothes. Oh fucking hell, guys. Every single mention. It's embarrassing at this point, honestly. Okay, let me read ahead before I continue reading this up. Yeah, okay, we're just gonna skip to number 1. Okay, I was expecting a great big single page spread for Resident Evil at number 1, but it's just in a corner. What the heck? We must admit, we were surprised Tomb Raider didn't make number 1. Yeah, that's because not all of your readers are... Let's not say that word. No, Tomb Raider is an amazing game in its own right, that I've never played, but like from... But I know I might get people telling me otherwise. Like, it was a legitimately fantastic video game, and there is a reason why it was in the top 25. And there is a reason why it was such like a poster child for the PlayStation back in the day. And it's kind of, you know, annoying that they can't talk about how good of a video game it is without obviously then just objectifying the main character. I don't want to go on about that too much because I know there are some people who are going to be like, oh wow, you're such a prude or whatever, which, you know, I'm not. I just think it's cringe. Alright, we've got to write a caption in order to win a bunch of PlayStation games, so I'm sure we're not past the deadline. What are we going to go with? We're going to have Jill going, how did I get into this situation? And the zombie's going to be like, you're telling me? I don't even live here. Thank you, everyone. I'll be here all week. Seriously, please, someone get me out of here. Alright, I was originally gonna do more for this video, but everything you just heard was recorded months ago, so I'm gonna put a pin in it there. Join us next time when we will either go to the previews section of this magazine, or we will continue with a different magazine entirely. Let me know down below if you enjoyed it, if there are any kind of magazines that you want me to check out, and I will see you in whatever I make next.